Well, there's, again, getting back to climate, there's a pretty good body of work in your field, in the sort of the intersection of economics and climate science, where at least some studies I've read indicate that, and Chris Green at McGill articulated this in a story of mine recently, that, this was the tipping points question. He said basically there's so many potential tipping points that it doesn't matter. You end up with Marty Weitzman at Harvard calls a smear of probability. And that takes you back to the need to just change trajectory. So in other words, if you don't know what the answer is, there could be these very bad outcomes. The level of probability almost doesn't matter. I guess that this is the fat tail
Precautionary
thing.
principle, fat tails, whatever.
Yeah, basically that you got to get busy. And there's delay is not excused by the uncertainty. And so once you get past that, then it's easy. Because then you have these arguments about how bad is it going to be? How bad is global warming going to be? And that goes away. If you just sort of say, look, we know profoundly, and even as I wrote today on the front page of the New York Times, industry knew in the mid-90s that global warming theory is actually pretty well established, and you add more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, it's going to keep warming. And so once you get past that and say, we need a new trajectory on energy options, or we're going to have a lot of change that will probably come with things that we won't like, then you at least you set aside, you say, all that yelling about the science is actually a sideshow. In this realm, science doesn't matter. In fact, there's a bunch of people who recently said to me, more global warming science is the last thing we need right now. Actually, serious people have said this, meaning, more study of the glacier thing. Because the more we study these particular things like hurricanes, the more questions arise. Hurricanes are complicated, and you're not going to get clarity out of more
Well, no,
science.
just back up. So,
which is interesting.
What you just said was that we don't need more study of hurricanes because it gets more complicated as you study it?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, so we're not going to resolve that issue of the causality of
Which
hurricanes.
takes you back to the fundamental reality of this. The uncertainties are what matter most, and this uncertainty comes with two sides. You can have bad outcomes, or maybe it's not so bad. But you can build concrete policy that's pretty much an easy sell, even with the level of understanding we have now, and a little more understanding isn't going to change that.
Right, I see what you're saying, yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm not sure that I don't quite understand. I have to think about it. What it means to say that more scientists studying the nature of hurricanes is bad because it gets more complicated. I think I understand in part because no one really thinks we're going to prevent hurricanes, right? So it's really
There are some people who are working on that,
Oh,
actually.
maybe that's good. That's interesting. That's fine. I take it back. But I do want to say that one aspect of this is the temporal and financial calculation.
Yeah.
It seems to me that what we need to be able to put forward in public policy is the right thing to do may not be profitable in the short term, defined by the way, in fact, the public and the private intersect in terms of profitability. So if the price of oil goes down, obviously, there's less incentive to create a competitive energy source. So that there are issues that, as you suggest, are value issues, which are not about profit, and that the temporal horizon has to be much, much longer. In other words, one thing that we have, if this current generation has one fold, it is the reduction of patience for time. In other words, our capacity to delay results, to wait until results are there, has been reduced by everything from, minute-by-minute trading of stocks, from the collapse to the nanotime, to our accustomed to get information right away, to get somebody we want on the phone instantaneously. So the reduction of our temporal mental framework has been reduced to nothing at the same time that we're living longer. Right? So we spend more time being impatient for less, and we will do so for longer. So the question is, how do we create an environment where a scientist or a policy person or an engineer can say, I'm working on this thing, and this thing will take a long time, and you won't know a result for a long time. And as you say, there's nothing wrong with transitional failures. Nothing wrong with transitional failures. In the arts, which I know much better than anything else, I look at a player piano. You know about player piano? It's an interesting gizmo. There's some people who've reinvented it as artwork. This is, people got tired of playing the piano, so why not simply get a machine that the keys go down? Then somebody started, what do we need the whole apparatus for? And then we went to the gramophone, to the radio, got rid of the instrument altogether. Now, yeah, so in retrospect, it was transitional, but the people who bought it thought it was great. There was something better. So I think your point of going down the road, we don't know what will be the stable answer over a long period of time, whether it's your saran wrap. But anything interim is on the road, and some will have, negative consequences.
I want to open up to the audience. I want to prime you with a last question, which is, we've been talking, and I think that, to me, this is the leadership generation. I don't know what that means. I say it all the time. I'm trying to figure it out. So, but I'd like your help sort of towards the end, if you could just give a few thoughts on whether that's a meaningful word. All right, well, actually, let's open it up for that'll be our closing remarks. So you can think about that for a few minutes. Do we have any questions from the audience? Do we have the mic? Yeah, so why don't we start in the back there?
Hi, Scott Carlin from CW Post, Long Island University. I'd be interested in your views on, do we need to have more cross-cultural conversation? Some thoughts that come to mind are, Leon just mentioned profitability, but what about capitalism? I would think a conversation like this, we ought to be talking a lot about the future of capitalism. Perhaps it doesn't have a future. Or perhaps something like Eastern philosophies. The Western materialist worldview is not doing us all that much good here. Thank you.
Yes, we need to have a lot more. There needs to be so much more cross-cultural communication, even within arcane realms like climate modelers. Many climate modelers have never seen the climate things that they model. I know sea ice modelers, Marika Holland at NCAR in Boulder, great scientist. She has never seen sea ice. And I've been promoting the idea that observational scientists should take modelers on vacations, they should have field trips. And you see this, of course, in every realm. And when I was a kid, these little things, I had a pen pal from West Cameroon. I don't think West Cameroon exists now, named Alfred Iwani. And I must have been 12 years old. And I remember this for some ridiculous reason. I remember getting these blue envelopes, airmail envelopes. And that helped expand my little East Greenwich, Rhode Island worldview just a little tiny bit. So that, and now, when Africa is becoming mobilized, mobile cell phone, the technology is a facilitator of all kinds of cross-cultural communication. I can't imagine why there should not be a school in America that doesn't have a sister school in a developing country. I just don't see why that's not routine now. And
A sister school where?
a sister school it could be in a poor part of America or in a poor part of the world, or in a rich part of the world. It doesn't, but talking to somebody outside of your bubble. It's
It's very difficult because I represent an institution. So in this kind of panel, which is public and being taped, it's extremely difficult to think independently. So I want to preface what I'm about to say as a thought experiment.